What's up, guys? My name is Malcolm Tibbs. I spent 25 years getting inconsistent results in my love life, and now not only do I have a fulfilling relationship, I also have the ability to go out, snap my fingers, and have half a dozen dates lined up within a week. Now, I see a lot of people in the comment section wondering how it's possible to have that many dates lined up in a week, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I do in order to pull that off. Now, my go-to method for getting dates, the easiest way that I've found, is using an app called Hinge, okay? I set up a dating profile. I've been using the same one for years. I put up the best pictures of myself that I can, and I don't put up the pictures that I think are good. I let the people on the app decide. So if a picture isn't getting a lot of likes, I'll take it off my profile and I'll replace it with one that I think might do better. Over time, I've ended up with a pretty good profile with pretty good prompts, and it is able to get me more than a handful of likes every day, as long as I'm actually on the app and liking people. If I stop engaging with the app will stop sending people to my profile. That's just what I've discovered. Now, after I set up the dating profile, I pretty much just run through a bunch of canned lines. Now, these are lines that I've come to discover that they work, and they are able to escalate the conversation in a way that's pretty linear, pretty predictable, and I can take that conversation, that match, and turn it into a phone number. And from there, it's pretty much just figuring out the logistics, okay? What I've found is that the basics of text game are really gonna be fundamental if you wanna get good at getting these dates, okay? Because it's not difficult. If you use an app like Hinge, you might find that maybe you want to use Tinder or maybe you want to use Bumble. Maybe the kind of girls you're looking for aren't really on Hinge, and you might be able to find them on a different app, okay? But I find that for what I'm looking for and for getting the best results, Hinge just works best for me. Now, with that being said, when you're texting women, I think the most important thing that was, difficult for me to understand is knowing where you're at in the conversation, okay? There's about 4 different phases. There's gonna be silence, there's gonna be shit tests, there's gonna be banter, and then there's just gonna be outright flirting, and then logistics, figuring out how you guys are getting to the date, okay? If you know where you're at, if you can read the temperature of the conversation, then you almost always have a response and you know how to get it to the next phase, right? So if you're getting silence, you want to just ping value out into the void. And personally, I find that when I get silence from a woman, I do better just leaving the conversation as it is and pursuing a different option, okay? But you may just want to be able to work on turning silence into something else, or maybe you really like this girl, you really want to be able to get her out on a date, she's the one for you, right? By all means, do what you feel like is necessary. But when you do get silence, you want to ping value out into the void, and that pretty much means you want to give her something without asking for anything, okay? You want to show her, you want to display value without trying to escalate and figure out the next time you guys are going to hang out, or trying to, figure out what her week is looking like, You just want to, almost like you're sending her a meme, something like that, okay? Now, if you're getting shit tests, this is when the girl is actually giving you a hard time. She's being a bit confrontational. She's butting up against your frame. You're pretty much only going to be getting shit tests when you start to take the conversation in a direction that she's not interested in, okay? Now, the thing about shit tests is that you only have to pass the shit test. Nothing else. You don't escalate on a shit test. You don't try to figure out when you guys are going to be able to hang out. You don't, try to figure out the logistics of her week. You just pass the shit test. And a lot of men are going to go into loss prevention mode. They're going to get more submissive, more needy, and they're going to go, oh no, she's giving me a hard time. I better hurry up and close on the date, right? That's the absolute worst thing that you could do in that scenario, okay? Just pass the shit test. You want to almost treat her like she's a toddler and she's saying something really funny, right? Like when you are, your niece or your nephew or whoever comes up to you and they want to start a fight, right? And they're like this 5-year-old, 6-year-old, person, and you almost just this is so hilarious, right? You almost want to play along with them, That's pretty much the kind of frame you want to step into when you want to pass a shit test. Now, if you're getting banter and you guys are flirting a little bit, right? Then just escalate, right? No matter what, you're going to respond to what she says and then add on a little bit of escalation. All right. It's a pretty simple formula. She says, oh, I'm doing X, Y, and Z today. You say, oh, that sounds super cool. I've never done that before. By the way, I was thinking maybe we can go out on Saturday, right? Oh, she says, okay, so Saturday works. Okay, sweet. Yeah, that sounds super dope. I'm not doing anything that day either. Maybe we could get like cinnamon rolls, or maybe we could get coffee, whatever it is, But you want to respond and then escalate. If you just escalate, it's almost like you're coming off a little bit too salesy, almost like you're trying to sell her, like you're being a bit too gamey. And if you never escalate, then the conversation doesn't go anywhere. You're going to get bored. She's going to get bored. Okay. Now, lastly, in the final phase of texting, there's just going to be outright, like you're sexting with her. Like you guys are just having these sexual exchanges on the phone. And with that, you want to escalate as soon as possible. So instead of trying to figure something out within the next week, you almost want to be saying, what are you doing tonight? What are you doing tomorrow, right? Do you want to come over anytime soon, But again, you want to follow the same formula as before. You want to respond to whatever is given to you, and then you want to escalate. Now, another good tip that I've discovered is that when you want to set up this sequence to get the phone number and get her to agree to go on a date and then start to set that up, you're going to want to qualify her. Okay, so you're going to ask her a question where you're almost screening her as if you have a jackpot and you're looking for a candidate. All right, so you might say something like, besides looking pretty, what are your best attributes? You might say something like, are you a good girl or a bad girl? Something like that. Where you're pretty much, you're asking her if she has the traits that you're looking for, all right? And this is a very powerful move. Once I figured out how to qualify women, I saw my game just blow up exponentially. But you're going to put her in a position where either she's going to just not respond, and that's not really going to be the case most of the time, at least that I've found. So the alternative is that she's going to start to try to win you over. She's going to gas herself up, almost as if, again, you have a jackpot and you're looking for a candidate. And she's going to do whatever it takes to win you over. So once you give her that qualifier, it's almost like she starts to jump through hoops, and it gets her invested mentally, right? Without her even knowing that she's really that invested. The moment she starts trying to win you over, just because you asked her that, well, what kind of girl are you? Are you the kind of girl that I could take to a dinner table, or maybe, X, Y, and Z, you ask her that kind of question and she tries to win your approval, you're in the money, right? So after you ask the qualifier, you're going to give her a vague suggestion. All right. Don't go, okay, meet me at Starbucks on Tuesday at 5 p.m. right? Maybe she has something to do. And if that's the case, you're probably going to get silence if you try to escalate in such a precise manner. You want to be a little bit vague. You might say something like, maybe you and I should grab coffee sometime next week, right? Or how about me and you go grab a bite to eat this weekend, But again, you want to keep it vague. You don't want to be too specific. You want to give yourself room to figure out the details. Because after she agrees and she says, yeah, that sounds awesome, I'm so down, you say, cool, here's my phone number. You guys move the conversation to text. And again, you want to get her as invested as possible. So exchanging personal information like a phone number is just going to cement the idea that she is interested in you in her own mind, much more so than if you gave her a Snapchat or an Instagram. So get her phone number, and then that entire conversation through text, you're going to be flirting and bantering, and all the while you're escalating and figuring out the details of, I dropped my phone, but you're figuring out the details of the date. Okay, so it gives you guys plenty of things to talk about. You might say, let's do something this weekend, and she'll go, no, I'm working this weekend. Maybe we could do something next week. And you say, sweet, yeah, so what do you do for work? At the same time, you can continue the conversation. Nobody's getting bored. You don't want to be texting her back to back, right? You want to give yourself a little bit of breathing room. So I would say at most wait 5 or 10 minutes after you get a text. Or else you're just going to come off super needy, especially if she's texting you back every 4 hours and then you just respond immediately. it doesn't really make you look that good, okay? So you wanna, give a little bit of time in between texts, but ideally, you should only be texting her like 2 or 3 times a day, okay? That is pretty much my manifesto when it comes to text game. There is a lot of good information in here. I feel like pretty much most of the things that I've learned in the last year that have really got me from getting a bunch of likes on Hinge to actually turning those likes into dates, I put into this video. So hopefully you guys got something good out of that. Listen, if you are interested in actually being able to land your first date within 30 days, check the link in the description below. There's a community that I'm hosting. It's filled with other men who are working on improving their dating skills. You can swap notes, get feedback, maybe even find a wingman in your area. And inside, you're going to find a 30-day challenge that's going to outline all of the little tweaks that you need to make to your lifestyle to make dating natural and easy. Besides that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this with a friend. And I'll see you guys in the next one.